A massive hack of Denver Public Schools reveals some deeply personal information and raises questions about whether the district complied with state law. A Republican legislator predicts civil war in reaction to Democratic gun control proposals. Denver mayoral candidate Debbie Ortega is promising a harder line against homeless encampments.
If we continue to have this proliferation, I think we have to take a tough stand on it.
But she won't answer a question that's facing every candidate in the race.
I apologize. I've asked 4 times. Is that a yes?
And a migrant family arrives in Denver with their American child. We'll meet them tonight on Next.
We all know the hassle of a data breach. You know, you got to go change your password, maybe get credit monitoring to make sure that somebody doesn't charge something in your name. And then there are those deep data breaches where detailed personal information is hacked. The kind of breach that you would expect Denver Public Schools would have told its employees about, you know, before the news did. But DPS didn't. Here's Marshall Zollinger.
I'm very disappointed that DPS did not reach out to all employees as soon as this happened to protect us and show that they value us.
High school math teacher Liz Fant found out about the DPS data breach from the news. A data breach involving names, social security numbers of current and former employees, employee fingerprints, bank account or pay card numbers, student ID numbers, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, and some health plan enrollment information. The district found out about the breach on January 4th, but just notified those impacted through a news release on Friday, along with letters put in the mail.
The name of the game in data breaches really is timely notification.
When Cole Wist was a Colorado State representative in 2018, he helped pass into law stronger protections for consumers when data breaches like this happen. That law requires people be notified not later than 30 days after the breach is discovered, with exceptions for the needs of law enforcement and understanding the scope of the breach.
There's no reason why there couldn't have been a prompt notification while DPS was investigating the scope of the damage that was done.
In a statement, DPS says it complied with all applicable laws in responding to this incident, saying it completed its review on February 8th and sent letters in the mail within 21 days.
If February 8th everything was complete, they should have sent out an email February 8th.
The district also pointed me to this notification it sent to staff in mid-January, requiring employees to reset their passwords because of, quote, suspicious activity detected on the district's computer network.
I would have assumed from that maybe some of my school information or stuff related to me as a teacher is out there, which is I'm not really worried about. There was no mention of any of our personal information being compromised.
There is another part of that state law that requires districts to notify the Attorney General's office no later than 30 days after the breach is known. The AG's office was notified February 17th. That's 44 days from knowing about the breach, and the AG's office tells me it is looking into whether it needs to investigate the response, not the breach itself, but telling the AG's office about it.
I mean, some of this information was not exactly fresh. How long is DPS holding on to personal information?
That's a question I've asked the district, which is required under that Cole-Wist law, and that's something he thinks is most important, is how long and what is your policy to get rid of people who don't work for you anymore?
Yeah.
What's your policy to get rid of it, and are you following through on that? He thinks that's most impactful to someone who, once you're gone, what's happening to my information?
Yeah, because that's your risk window, and how many places hold on to your information. Really interesting. Marshall, thank you. Colorado Democrats' most controversial gun control proposal at the Capitol this year is not part of the package of gun control bills that was prominently unveiled altogether 2 weeks ago. A bill introduced last Friday evening would ban the manufacture and sales of so-called assault weapons, with some exceptions like for law enforcement or armed forces. The bill's prime sponsors, freshman Democratic Representative Elizabeth Epps and Senator Rhonda Fields, have not responded to our request for comment. Representative Andrew Bosnecker was also a prime sponsor of this assault weapons ban, but he recently took his name off the bill. Republicans do not have the votes to stop the bill, but it's also not clear if enough Democrats support it. And Democratic Governor Jared Polis, who voted for a similar ban in Congress, has not yet committed to signing so-called assault weapons ban if it passes. A Republican state rep threatened civil war over the Democrats' gun control proposals. That is Matt Soper, who represents Mesa and Delta counties, tweeted over the weekend that gun control advocates would have to, quote, invade the West Slope and murder us if they intend on us being defenseless. Representative Soper said that they should, quote, be prepared for civil war. Soper then retreated faster than the losers of the original Civil War, saying this in the House today.
Normally, I'm known as being rational and reasonable and choosing my words very carefully. They were chosen carefully, but I do want to apologize for a couple of words that were in the tweet.
So he chose the words carefully, but he wants to apologize for some of them. He didn't actually name the ones he wanted to apologize for, so we asked him. House Republicans, what's the deal? Which specific words was Representative Soper apologizing for using? The stuff about Civil War or murders or invasion? We have not heard back. Our next conversation tonight is with a candidate for Denver mayor who really knows the ins and outs of city government as few do. The question, though, is whether that experience is what voters are looking for in a city that's struggling with homelessness, crime, and affordable housing. Experience is where I began my conversation with City Councilwoman and candidate for mayor, Debbie Ortega. You have served on City Council for a total of 28 combined years. You've been working in government since I think you were a teenager.
17 is when I started.
17. In a year where the polling shows that a lot of people in Denver want a change in direction. Is your experience a liability this year?
Kyle, I think my liability is an asset because now more than ever, the city needs somebody who understands how this city works. I know the inner workings. I've been successful getting many different kinds of legislation passed.
If you had to list one singular accomplishment from your time on City Council that you're most proud of or you think has had the most impact, what would it be?
Wow, I could list a lot of them, but I think one that I'm very proud of is the doubling the fines for speeding in school zones, requiring people to slow down, because the year that we brought that legislation forward, we had 5 children that were struck by vehicles. A couple of them died. And I think our kids' safety is one of the most important things we need to focus on.
My conversation with Debbie Ortega continues here in a moment with a pretty telling non-answer that she gave not once, but 5 times. Ortega is one of 11 candidates participating in our second mayoral debate next Tuesday, March 14th. 9 News commissioned a Survey USA poll of likely Denver voters with our partners at Colorado Politics, Denver Gazette, and MSU Denver. There are 11 candidates who are polling between 2 and 5%. They have been invited to debate before you to make their case to the majority of voters who told pollsters they're still undecided. Before we step away for a moment, thank you for what you did last week to support a nonprofit that helps working single moms have reliable transportation. Hands of the Carpenter's been repairing cars for 20 years. They'll connect a family with a donated car if theirs can't be fixed. Hands just opened up a second location to serve the entire metro area, and the $19,000 you raised for Hands will go a long way. Your word of thanks generosity still going strong. 2.5 years and $10.5 million after you got started with your giving. Please keep emailing your ideas of nonprofits that could use our help as a community. Read each and every email that comes to next@9news.com.
Mayoral candidate Debbie Ortega is facing the tough question that every person who wants to lead the city will have to answer. And she does not want to answer.
And I want to just segue to one issue, and I'll come back to answering your question in a minute.
Let's just answer this question, then we can move on to the other issue.
Our conversation continues, sort of, next.
One of the most difficult questions facing the candidates for Denver mayor is what to do when some of the people living in homeless encampments refuse offers of shelter or treatment. Some mayoral candidates say that they will arrest people just for violating the urban camping ban. Other candidates say that those arrests would be inhumane and unproductive. And Debbie Ortega took a new approach. She ducked the question all 5 times I asked. You have said that you will forcibly clear encampments, and then the question becomes, what happens if somebody there refuses the city's offer of shelter or treatment? Would you seek to have people arrested simply for violating the urban camping ban?
So, as you know, this is a complex issue. You and I have been at the Denver Rescue Mission serving in the food line together, and there is no one-size-fits-all. The people who find themselves in this situation come from every background.
Would you arrest folks for violating the camping ban?
So I'm not going to arrest somebody just because they're homeless. But I want to make sure people understand that we have different offerings. And I want to just segue to one issue, and I'll come back to answering your question in a minute.
Let's just answer this question, then we can move on to the other issue. Would you arrest somebody for violating the camping ban? Because that's not just being homeless, that's also violating the camping ban. Some folks in the race say that they would, some say they wouldn't. What would you do?
So I would deal with their illegal behaviors. That's where I would draw the line, because we have some people that at some of these encampments, and they're not all homeless. We know from the police department and our service providers, we have people that come in that are selling drugs that blend in among the homeless, and everybody thinks they're homeless, but they're not.
You pivoted to folks who are in encampments and selling drugs. My question again is, would you arrest people simply for violating the urban camping ban?
If we continue to have a proliferation of encampments where we have the public safety issue, the health hazard that we've seen, I mean, some of these sites have become a sanitary problem that our city has had to deal with. And yes, part of that is access to restrooms. We've had portable restrooms that we've tried to move around the city. So it's a tough call, but I think if we continue to have this proliferation, I think we have to take a tough stand on it. But I want to make sure that we are addressing.
So is that a yes? I apologize. I've
needs.
asked 4 times. Is that a yes that you would arrest people simply for violating the urban camping ban?
It's focused on behaviors. I want to hone in on their behaviors.
All right. I don't know that we're going to get an answer there. We'll move on to something else. We moved on to a number of other issues in our 25-minute conversation, including Ortega's idea of converting downtown office space to housing, her record on fighting polluters, and whether she and City Council share any of the blame for Denver's problems today. All of our full conversations with the candidates for Denver mayor are on the next YouTube channel.
Hey there, happy Monday. Hope you enjoyed some of the sunshine, some blue skies tonight. The clouds already starting to push in. This is our live camera up there in Boulder and the Flatirons. Kind of looking a little murky out there on a Monday night. We were in the upper 30s and lower 40s this afternoon for highs. A little toastier across the far southeastern plains, 39 in Leadville and about 35 in Steamboat Springs. Tonight, that cloud deck will continue to push in along the Front Range, and potentially, as a weak little system cruises across the state, we'll be looking at some freezing fog as well as the possibility of some freezing drizzle off to the far northeastern plains. In fact, this week we'll kind of have a series of disturbances that push in, but they're mainly going to stay to the north, so we really won't see a ton of action as far as a big snowstorm here for the metro area. This is early tomorrow, 8 a.m. You can see that cloud deck, all that fog kind of socked into the I-25 corridor, possibly a few flurries in and around northern Colorado, and then as the afternoon wears on, that fog starts to retreat. But if you live across the northeastern plains, you're with it all day long, and once again it rolls back in tomorrow night. Upper 30s, low 40s on deck for us. Isolated showers possible on Wednesday, and then the temperatures continue to climb. Look at next Saturday, 60, with a possibility of a few rain showers at night.
The migrants coming to Denver are sharing their stories. We'll meet one couple who became parents along the way. Next.
The journey from Venezuela to Denver is hard for adults, even harder with children. A woman who made the journey while pregnant told our Angeline McCall why she took the risk.
Pedirle mucho a Dios porque yo estaba asustada porque como todo lo que pasé. Más que todo cuando pasé por la selva, sí tenía mucho miedo de perderla.
On the journey to the United States, there was only one option: to make it here together.
Cómoda, bastante cómoda.
After months traveling, Kaylee and Mar's family arrived here in Denver.
Para nosotros y todo es más seguro, más tranquilo, más cómodo.
They're spending their days here in this hotel turned shelter.
Sí, eso esperemos que todo bien.
Hoping to make Denver home.
Bueno, planeamos quedarnos acá, un trabajo, tener para arrendar nuestra propia casa.
We were starting to see more and more Venezuelans come into the community.
Calling Blake Barrow, mobile.
John Martin runs the Opportunity Center for the Homeless in El Paso.
Mr. Barrow, how's life treating you?
For months, he's helped migrant families find a temporary place to stay, even when they didn't have room. Families like Kylie Mars.
Everything we've seen since August with the migrants have come in waves. And so the question is, what is the next wave going to look like, and when is it going to happen?
She left Venezuela expecting.
Pasamos Perú, Ecuador y llegamos a Colombia. Luego de ahí llegamos a la selva, entre Panamá y Colombia. Ahí duramos 5 días en la selva. Yo venía embarazada de ella, tenía 7 meses.
Pregnant and expecting her daughter to join them.
Yo llegué a Juárez el 19 de diciembre y ese día fue difícil, pero porque cuando ya venía llegando acá, ya tenía dolores ya. Por eso cuando me entregué ya no aguanté y nació ahí en migración.
She gave birth at the wall, outside of immigration.
Sí, es un milagro, porque después de todo lo que pasé.
Kailani's first moments with her whole family had to wait until after her birth on the border.
Ahí yo di a luz en la frontera, de ahí me mandaron al hospital y mi esposo se quedó en la migración con los 2 niños. Ahí lo detuvieron por un día y al otro día ya los soltaron a ellos con los niños. Josué, sí, mucho camino. Pero gracias a Dios nació muy bien, nació sana.
Now in Denver, Kylie Amar can envision what's next.
Que quiero otra vida para ellos.
Even though they are together,
Y este es el acta.
at the end of their journey,
Es bueno y a la vez es malo.
she still worries.
A veces me preocupa porque dicen que si a mí me deportan, ella se queda aquí. Y ese es el miedo que tengo.
She brought her here for their better life together.
Sí, eso a veces me preocupa. Por lo que le digo por la niña, no me gustaría separarme de ella.
Originally, this family wanted to make it to New York, but changed their minds when they arrived here in Denver. They do have an asylum court date for early this summer as well, so that's a big priority, as well as making sure that they have jobs to support their family, their kids, and of course, their baby.
You know, Angelina, of all the stories that you've brought us, this is just another reminder that these situations are very complex. I mean, families are naturally complex, then you add in issues of migration, and people are in really complex and difficult situations.
Yeah, when this mother that you just heard from, Kylie Amar, when she originally made the journey, I asked her, you know, did you plan to have your baby here? And she said, no, it was just the way the timing worked out. And they also kind of rushed that day to get to the U.S. border because they worried about what the outcome would be if their baby had Mexican citizenship. And so, you know, it's just really tough. You have to make these really in the spur of the moment decisions and really hope that it's what's best for your family. But now she's stuck in a position worrying, gosh, what if this asylum case doesn't work out? And then what happens? Are we separated? Does she stay here? How do we get her back to Venezuela with us? And so it's a tough position all around.
Angeline, thank you for that story. Your feedback's next. In feedback tonight, Todd writes in to say that he thinks that we and the candidates for Denver mayor are too focused on the issue of homelessness. He says, yes, it is a problem, but is it really affecting 98% of the people who live here, their quality of life, cost of living, etc.? Well, Todd, the most scientific information we have is that Survey USA poll that 9 News just commissioned with our partners. And one of the things asked of voters is, what are the most important issues to focus on in the future? Crime came in at number 1. Homelessness came in at number 2. Affordable housing was right up there. When you talk to the candidates for mayor, they all agree that those are the most important issues. See you next time.